There's this moment in every unraveling where, looking back, you realize the first thread came loose long before anything truly fell apart. For me, it was a Thursday night in October at the Chicago Museum of Contemporary Art. A charity gala, black tie, overpriced tickets, and people pretending art could save the world while sipping champagne and trading business cards like currency. Amber looked stunning, as always. That wasn't new. She's always known how to dress a room around her. The way the emerald silk of her dress caught the light, like a wave of green fire, and the low neckline that left very little to the imagination. I probably wasn't the only one watching her that night. But what got me wasn't the way she looked. It was the way she acted, like I wasn't there. We entered together, arm in arm. But by the time we checked our coats, Amber had already slipped out of reach. I watched her weave through the crowd, laughter spilling from her lips too freely, her eyes darting from face to face like she was searching for something, or someone. She made rounds like a politician on a campaign trail, all bright eyes and playful touches. I stood near a sculpture that looked like tangled wire and tried to ignore the way my stomach twisted every time her hand rested just a beat too long on someone else's arm. I've seen Amber flirt. She's always had that spark, that mischievous glint when she's enjoying herself. But this wasn't that. This was curated, purposeful, detached. She spoke with at least 3 different men in a matter of 15 minutes. One was a clean-cut finance guy I recognized from a previous gala, always smiling, always one drink ahead of everyone else. Another was older, tan, with 2 white teeth and a hand that grazed the small of her back like he'd done it before. But the third man? I hadn't seen him before. He was tall, salt and pepper hair, tailored black tux that probably cost more than my first car. He didn't talk much, just watched. Quiet, calculating. And Amber smiled at him like they had a secret. That's when I started watching too. Felt ridiculous at first. Paranoid. Like I was inventing drama to distract myself from the endless conversations about market trends and philanthropy tax credits. But then something happened. Amber excused herself to touch up her makeup. I saw her step out toward the far hallway near the exhibit entrance. A few minutes later, she returned, passing behind a group of donors laughing over abstract art. As she adjusted her clutch, a small folded piece of paper fluttered out and landed near the edge of a low marble bench. No one noticed. No one but me. I picked it up as casually as I could, acting like I'd dropped something. It was a half-folded note on textured stationery, expensive like hotel memo pads but without any logo. I opened it with one hand, feeling suddenly like I shouldn't. Just one sentence, written in sharp, elegant cursive. We're being watched. Act accordingly. No signature. No date. Not even initials. My heart dropped. There's a moment between reading something and reacting to it where time stretches. I just stood there, the note in my palm, reading those 6 words over and over, hoping they'd mean something different the 5th time around. Act accordingly. I folded it quickly, slid it into my inside jacket pocket, and pretended nothing had happened. But from that moment on, the air felt different, heavier, like something in the room had shifted, and I was the last one to catch on. When we got home later that night, I waited until she slipped off her heels and padded barefoot into the kitchen. I handed her the note like a detective sliding evidence across an interrogation table. "This fell out of your bag," I said evenly. She looked at it for a split second too long before letting out a light, careless laugh. "Oh, God. That's embarrassing. It's nothing. Just a dumb joke between me and Taylor from work." "Taylor?" I didn't know a Taylor. I raised an eyebrow. "A joke?" "Yeah," she said, already tossing it into the recycling bin like it was gum wrapper. "We had this running gag during a board retreat last spring. It's not a big deal." I didn't press. I just nodded and pretended to let it go. But here's the thing, I know Amber. I've known her since we were 24. I know when she's bluffing, and I know when she's lying. That was neither. That was something else. Something rehearsed. She didn't miss a beat. No stammering, no over-explaining. Just smooth dismissal with a smile and a joke. That kind of composure isn't accidental. I kept thinking about that note as I lay awake next to her, listening to her soft, even breathing. We're being watched. Act accordingly. It played on a loop in my head like some cryptic message out of a spy film. Why write that? Why risk it falling out? And more importantly, who was it even for? Me? Someone else? That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling and replayed the past few months in my head like a forensic file. The new work trips. The changed passwords. The sudden switch in perfume. A subtle chill that had crept into our conversations, our dinners, our bedroom. I started wondering when exactly Amber stopped looking at me like I was the only person in the room. You don't notice the ice forming until you're standing in it up to your knees. After the gala, things didn't explode. Amber didn't confess to anything. There wasn't some huge argument, no slamming doors or emotional theatrics. Instead, what followed was worse, silence. The kind that hums beneath the surface. Like a current pulling away from the shore before the wave hits. At first, I tried to tell myself I was being paranoid. I gave her space. I didn't bring up the note again. I watched her as she poured herself coffee in the morning, scrolled through her phone, or disappeared into another room to take a call with a "just a sec, babe." But it all began stacking moment by moment into a narrative that didn't line up anymore. She was leaving earlier for work, coming home later. When I asked how her day went, I got generalities. Busy? Fine. Back-to-back meetings. No details. No stories. Amber used to tell me everything, even the boring stuff. Now her answers were vague outlines, carefully filled with just enough to be believable. And the clothes. Not that I minded the new additions. But I noticed the difference. Bolder cuts. More heels. New lipstick shades that didn't match the softness I remembered. Like she was dressing for someone with a different idea of who she was supposed to be. One Thursday evening, she told me she had a late board meeting at a hotel downtown. Not at the office. At a rooftop lounge they'd reserved for a team-building session, she said. I asked if she wanted a ride, and she waved it off with a kiss on the cheek and said she'd Uber. Parking's a nightmare. She wore a deep berg *NY dress I'd never seen before, elegant and unmistakably expensive. Her hair was done the way she used to wear it when we first started dating, loose waves, soft but deliberate. Something about that choice hit me like a memory we *P***nized. After she left, I sat in the kitchen staring at the remnants of the dinner I made. Then I opened a book I wasn't really reading. My mind wouldn't settle. At some point, I got up, grabbed my coat, and walked out the door. I didn't have a plan. Just an instinct. I pulled my car out slowly and followed the map Amber had left open on her laptop earlier that day. She'd forgotten to close the tab. Or maybe she hadn't. It was a directions page to a hotel not far from the lake. Not the one she said the meeting was at. I parked a block away across the street. I told myself I wasn't doing anything wrong. I wasn't interfering. I just needed to know. From the alley, between the glow of two trashlit security lights, I saw her. She exited a silver Lexus. The same Lexus I'd seen at the gala, the one driven by the tall man in the tux. Her dress clung to her in the streetlight, and she laughed openly. Not the polite laugh she used for donors or coworkers. This one came from her stomach. From familiarity. He walked around and placed his hand on her back as they walked into the hotel together. Not briefly. Not in passing. He left it there. My pulse went numb. My fingers dug into the brick wall beside me. I didn't move. I couldn't. I strained to hear their voices as they approached the entrance. The man said something about timing, how she pulled it off, and that he never would have guessed. She told him not to be smug, but she was smiling. They disappeared through the revolving door like people who'd done this before. Like this wasn't new. I stood there long after they were gone, blending into the alley like some misplaced statue. I don't remember driving home. The streetlights blurred like smudged paint, and the hum of the car engine sounded like someone else's heartbeat. Amber got back around 11:40. I was in the living room pretending to read, a glass of untouched whiskey on the coffee table. She looked surprised to see me still awake. Didn't think you'd still be up, she said casually, slipping out of her heels. How was the meeting? I asked. She paused just a beat too long. Long, but productive. These things always run over. You know how it is. I nodded. Sure. She smiled and started toward the bedroom. I'm gonna shower, my head's **ling me. I watched her walk away so calmly. So smoothly. Like nothing was wrong. Like she hadn't just spent the evening with someone who knew exactly how to touch her without asking. That night, I lay in bed beside her, awake again. Her breathing even. Her skin warm beneath the sheets. But everything between us had gone cold. Over the next week, I started noticing patterns. She was on her phone more, but always with the screen tilted away. When I'd walk into the room, she'd press the side button quickly, pretend she wasn't doing anything. She kept getting calls from unknown or no caller ID. Every time she'd excuse herself. Just work, she'd say. As if I didn't notice how her voice shifted slightly, softened when she spoke to whoever it was. She became allergic to eye contact. That was the most obvious sign. When someone's lying to you regularly, they avoid being seen. I wasn't looking for a fight. I wasn't trying to trap her. I just wanted her to stop making me feel like a stranger in my own home. One Saturday, she told me she had to meet a client, an emergency meeting. She dressed up again. Designer blazer. New heels. Soft perfume. She wouldn't tell me who the client was. Just that it was sensitive. I followed her again. No shame in it. No hesitation this time. She met the same man at a downtown cafe, outdoor seating, like they were playing house. He leaned in too close. She laughed, her hand resting on the table, waiting for him to cover it. And he did. They looked like a couple halfway through a relationship and halfway through a lie. I didn't stay long. Just long enough to feel the sharp snap of truth break something in my chest. I drove home slowly. Stopped for gas I didn't need. Sat in the driveway until my legs were ready to work again. When Amber came home that evening, she was carrying a gift bag from a boutique store she never mentioned. She kissed me on the cheek. Thanks for giving me space today. I needed that. I nodded. Of course. She smiled, went to the kitchen, and poured herself a glass of wine. She was humming. Humming. I thought about telling her right then. Laying it all out. The following. The hotel. The man. The lie. But something stopped me. It wasn't fear. It wasn't even anger. It was calculation. Because if Amber was going to rewrite the rules of our marriage, I needed to decide how I wanted to play. Not loudly. Not impulsively. Quietly. Observantly. Like her. By the following Monday, I had stopped wondering if something was happening and started wondering how long it had been happening. That question haunted me more than anything. The affair wasn't what broke me. It was the slow realization that I'd been erased from my own life, scene by scene, without noticing. I took the day off under the excuse of needing to catch up on grading, though I didn't even open my laptop. Instead, I wandered downtown with no particular destination, ending up near the luxury dealership 2 blocks from the university. The place was wall-to-wall glass, more architectural statement than business, and I paused outside one of the long, mirrored walls to let my mind breathe. I didn't expect to see them there. Amber was inside. So was he, the man from the gala, the Lexus, the hotel. I knew his face well now, even though we'd never exchanged a single word. They were standing by a white coupe, sleek, unnecessary, expensive. I wasn't close enough to hear what they were saying, but I didn't need to. Her posture said enough. She tilted her head in that way she used to do when we were first falling in love. Her hand rested lightly on his shoulder. And then she laughed, leaning into him just enough for the moment to be unmistakable. His hand slid down her back in a way that wasn't casual. They weren't looking toward the window. And they probably wouldn't have seen me even if they had. The glass created this strange illusion, the outside world reduced to moving shadows. But from where I stood, I saw everything. It felt surreal, watching them through a reflection. Like I wasn't even there. Like my life had become someone else's movie and I was just a faceless extra trapped on the other side of the glass. I did something that I never thought I'd do. I raised my phone slowly, pretending to text, and snapped a photo. It wasn't a perfect *T. Their actual figures were blurred, slightly distorted by the showroom's lighting. But in the reflection, clear as daylight, there they were, Amber smiling in a way I hadn't seen in months. Him, close enough to kiss her without moving. The *Macy was real, even if it wasn't meant to be seen. I walked away as calmly as I could. My hands trembled and the sweat under my collar made it feel like I was suffocating in my own skin. I got in my car and sat there for at least 10 minutes before I could start the engine. That evening, I didn't confront her. I didn't even mention it. Instead, I waited. We had dinner like usual, salmon, rice, and the spinach she always overcooked. She was quiet but not distant. Like she knew I was looking at her and she was trying to stay inside whatever character she had created for me. When I cleared the plates, she checked her phone. A message came in and she tilted the screen just slightly toward herself, her thumb hovering over the reply for longer than necessary. Then, like she remembered I existed, she looked up. "You've been quiet today," she said lightly. "Just tired. Everything okay at work?" "Same as always." She smiled, sipping her wine. "You know, I've been thinking. We should take a weekend trip soon. Maybe the cabin in Michigan we went to 2 summers ago." I studied her for a beat. "That sounds nice." The thing is, it didn't sound nice. It sounded strategic. A well-timed offering to keep me docile. I could feel it now, every word she chose, every gesture, every smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. This wasn't a marriage anymore. It was a performance. After she went to bed, I sat alone in the kitchen, staring at the photo I had taken earlier. I zoomed in slowly, tracing the lines of her face through the showroom window. She looked happy. Not guilty. Not conflicted. Happy. The next morning, I sent the photo to myself twice, once to my private email and once to an encrypted cloud drive. I didn't know why I felt the need to protect it. Maybe because some small part of me knew that if I ever confronted her, she'd deny it. She was good at that. Too good. The lies didn't come with stutters or shame. They came calmly, neatly folded in humor and inside jokes. Like that note from the gala, "We're being watched. Act accordingly." At the time, I thought maybe it wasn't meant for me. Now, I was starting to believe it absolutely was. Amber noticed the shift in me later that week. I was speaking less, listening more. I'd look at her just a little longer than usual. And when she made light-hearted conversation, I didn't meet her halfway. Thursday night, she finally broke the silence. "Okay, seriously," she said from across the couch. "What's going on with you?" I looked up from my book. "What do you mean? You've been different. Distant." I stared at her. "That's funny. I was going to say the same about you." Her expression tightened. "Excuse me." I shrugged. "I just meant you've been working late a lot. More calls. New clothes. New schedule." She laughed softly, almost convincingly. "Jason, are you accusing me of something?" "No. I'm observing." That unnerved her. I saw it, how the corners of her smile twitched like a mask slipping for just a second. She reached for the wine glass she hadn't touched all night. "Well," she said, voice light but clipped, "maybe you should stop observing and start communicating." I closed the book. "I'm trying. But I'm not sure who I'm talking to anymore." That ended the conversation. She stood, walked toward the kitchen, and muttered something about needing space. I let her go. That night, she texted me from the bedroom. I was in my study, rereading my own messages to look for clues I might have missed. Her message: "I hate this tension. Let's talk tomorrow. I love you." I stared at it for a long time before replying. "Okay." I didn't say "I love you" back. Not because I didn't want to, but because I wasn't sure what that even meant anymore. Love is supposed to be mutual presence. Honest. I wasn't sure Amber existed in that version of love anymore, not with me. The next day, she acted like everything was fine. Made pancakes. Played music in the kitchen. Wore the soft hoodie she knew I liked. But the smile she gave me over coffee was the same one she gave people she didn't know well. Polite. Pitched. Hollow. It hit me then. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. I was simply the only one in this house still playing by the original rules. The next part of this wasn't going to be emotional. It had to be logical. Like peeling back a philosophy problem until only the core remains. I couldn't win a game I didn't understand. But if I studied the board long enough, I could learn how it worked. I needed more than suspicion. More than a reflection in a pane of glass. I needed the full picture. So I called Tess, my sister. Brilliant. Relentless. And, conveniently, a digital forensics analyst. "Tess," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "I need your help. And I need you not to ask me why yet." She paused. Then, without hesitation, "Give me the login info." Tess didn't ask questions, not at first. That's one of the things I've always appreciated about her. She trusts that when I ask for help, there's a reason even if I don't spell it out. I gave her Amber's old Apple ID, one I helped her set up years ago when she kept forgetting her passwords. Amber had long since moved on to newer devices, newer platforms, but people forget how much the old bones of a system still store. Backups. Syncs. Ghosts of deleted things. I didn't expect much. Maybe a few texts, a calendar note, something small that confirmed what I'd already seen. What I got instead was a slow-motion collapse of everything I thought I knew. Tess called me 2 days later. I was sitting in my office at home, pretending to write a syllabus for next semester. "Jay," she said, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly." "Okay. Have you talked to a lawyer yet?" My stomach turned. "No." "Why?" She exhaled. "Because this isn't just some affair. It's strategic. Like premeditated strategic." I leaned back in my chair. "What did you find?" Silence for a beat. Then, "I'm sending you a folder. Read it alone." The folder came through encrypted, labeled only with my initials. Inside were subfolders: audio, docs, bank, and a final one labeled, simply, legal. I opened the bank records first. Amber had made multiple transfers spaced out, never over $10,000, into an LLC account registered under the name Second Horizon Group. I'd never heard of it. A quick search showed nothing. But Tess had gone deeper. "It's a shell," she wrote in the accompanying notes. "No employees. No website. Registered just last year in Delaware." Common trick. But here's the kicker, it's tied to a business address in Evanston. I felt my heart pause. The address was familiar. Too familiar. It belonged to Sam Harding, a friend I hadn't spoken to in nearly 3 years. We'd met in grad school, bonded over Camus and bourbon, and drifted apart after he moved into corporate consulting. The last I heard, he was running a boutique legal advisory group. And apparently, he was now the legal address for my wife's secret financial vehicle. I stared at the screen, the nausea building slowly. Amber had transferred just under $84,000 to this shell over 6 months. Every deposit was labeled vaguely consulting, project expenses, logistics. None of it matched anything she'd ever told me. I couldn't trace the withdrawals, but Tessa's notes said it best, that money's being staged. For something. I moved to the audio folder. Tess had pulled old voice memos backed up automatically to Amber's iCloud. Most were short, clipped, recorded like reminders for herself. The first one hit me like a punch to the ribs. So, if Jason asks, I'll say it was a work dinner. Not a lie exactly. Just not the whole thing. As long as he doesn't look too closely, it's fine. My mouth went dry. Her tone wasn't even anxious, just composed. Another one. Sam says we need everything ready by early March. That means transfer's done, narrative said. Jason's still in the fog, but I don't want any surprises when we start this. And no paper trail. I'll get creative. When we start this. Start what? The next one had background noise, clinking glasses, quiet music. Amber's voice came in softly like she was speaking in confidence to someone beside her. Honestly, I'm not worried about the emotional stuff. Jason's too passive. He doesn't do drama. I just need the numbers clean, the timing right. The rest'll take care of itself. I stopped the recording. My hands were shaking. I moved to the legal folder. Tess had attached a PDF of registration papers for Second Horizon Group dated 8 months ago. Filed electronically. Prepared by none other than Harding and Moss LLP. Sam's firm. I had to stand up. Walk around. Breathe. This wasn't just Amber cheating. This was Amber preparing for a future without me. Not just preparing, engineering it. A carefully staged separation. One that siphoned assets early, painted her as composed and rational while I sat clueless in my kitchen making pasta and grading papers. She wasn't just leaving me. She was lining up the sh*T months in advance, making sure that when she pulled the trigger, there'd be no mess on her side of the wall. That night, she brought me tea. Jasmine. The kind she knew I didn't really like. I think we've been off lately, she said as she handed me the mug. I've been stressed. I know I haven't been as present. I looked at her, really looked. Her eyes were soft. Sympathetic. But detached, like she was speaking to a client or a witness. Not a husband. Yeah, I said, keeping my voice even. I felt that too. She nodded. Maybe we need a reset. A reset, I echoed. I don't know. Just, time to reevaluate things. Together. I still want us to work. Don't you? She watched me carefully. Like she was studying my reaction. Measuring it. And suddenly I realized this was rehearsed. She wasn't here to fix anything. She was testing the temperature. Seeing how close she was to pulling it all off. I do want that, I said. It was a lie. Or maybe just a performance. Because if Amber was going to spend months building a fortress around her new life, I needed time to build a battering ram. Later that night, I pulled up Harding and Moss's website. Buried in the attorney bios, I found him, Sam Harding. Now a senior partner. Specializing in, of all things, complex divorces involving intellectual property and residual income. My stomach turned. That detail wasn't random. Amber knew about the manuscript I'd been working on. Years of research on moral relativism and AI. I had a publishing offer on the table, a modest advance, but decent royalties expected. I hadn't signed anything yet, but I had discussed it with her. Mentioned it over dinner. She'd asked about copyrights. Ownership. Hypotheticals. At the time, I thought she was just proud of me. Now I realized she was preparing to claim a stake in something I hadn't even published yet. The pieces fell into place with grotesque precision. Her late nights. The money. Sam. The shell company. The way she'd shifted our finances to joint ledger apps I never checked. She was paper trailing just enough to justify her exit and wiping away everything else. And the most painful part? She didn't expect me to notice. I was the philosopher. The dreamer. Too in my own head to track numbers or sense shifts. She'd counted on my trust. My distraction. My passivity. She'd mistaken introspection for weakness. The next day I made 3 calls. First to a financial advisor I trusted, someone outside our social circle with no ties to either of us. I asked him to do a quiet audit. just enough to spot discrepancies. Second, to a university contact, an old friend in the law department, for advice on property protections in academic intellectual works. And the third? To Sam Harding's firm. I didn't ask for him directly. Just requested an appointment with any associate handling creative asset structuring. I gave a false name. Said I was preparing to launch a joint publishing venture. They scheduled me for Friday. It wasn't about confrontation. Not yet. It was reconnaissance. Because if Amber wanted to play chess, I was done being the pawn. Tess didn't sleep that night, not because I asked her to keep working, but because she insisted. When we were kids, she used to take apart old VCRs just to see how the guts worked. Now she did the same with people's secrets. I used to tease her about it. You were born nosy, I'd say. But now I was grateful she'd never outgrown it. The next morning, she sent me a message, "Call me. You need to hear this with my voice." I took the call from my car. I didn't want to be anywhere near the house when she started explaining. I got into her secondary cloud, she said. She must have used an old sync account she forgot to wipe. Not much at first, but then I found the hidden folders. Jason, it's worse than we thought. Worse how? She's been documenting everything. Like a case file. *TS audio, backups of messages. There's even a spreadsheet titled Separation Phases. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I just let her keep going. There are conversations between her and the attorney, yes, your friend Sam, and also between her and... I think it's her best friend, Dana. Dana. Of course. The one who always played neutral. Who used to say things like, "Jason's too good for this world." I had no idea what this was until now. She's been coordinating with them for months, Tess continued. Setting up legal angles. Property stuff. There's even a memo exchange labeled narrative framing. That one's bad, Jay. Real bad. What's in it? Tess paused. You sure you want to know? I need to. Amber and Sam are discussing how to position you for court. They talk about your personality, say you're passive, academic, non-confrontational. They plan to use that. She even has notes on how to speak about the marriage, phrases like emotionally neglected and spiritually incompatible. It's scripted, Jason. She's building her persona. The silence between us grew heavy. There's a voice memo, she said quietly. You should hear it yourself. She sent it while we were still on the phone. I parked on a side street, closed my eyes, and hit play. Amber's voice came through, calm and professional. I want to preserve my image. That's non-negotiable. Jason's too proud to go public, but I can't risk uncertainty. If it ever gets messy, I'll cite creative differences, no infidelity. Just incompatibility. And I'll keep any visible communication clean. No paper trails, no drama. If it starts to unravel, Dana will redirect. She knows what to say. The casualness. The detachment. That was the part that gutted me. She wasn't just leaving me. She was turning me into a narrative manageable, sanitized, and tailored for legal efficiency. I should have been angry. But mostly, I felt hollow. Like I'd been peeled open and cataloged. There's more, Tess said softly. Of course there was. She's been testing communication fail points. Meaning, she sends messages, then deletes them, *TS your responses, and logs your tone. Like she's creating a record of how you communicate under stress. It's manipulative as hell. And it's intentional. It took me a minute to respond. So she's building evidence against me. Or building a case to protect herself from what she thinks you might do. I haven't done anything. Exactly. And that's what makes it so twisted. I sat in the car until my hands stopped shaking. People walked by, going about their lives, coffee in one hand, phones in the other, while my entire reality was unspooling in time-stamped voice notes and spreadsheet tabs. Later that afternoon, I got a ping on my backup email. Device login notification, location, downtown Chicago, IP 173.xx.xx.2. Device, MacBook Pro. User, Amber Harper. She'd logged in on the hotel Wi-Fi. Probably didn't think I had access to that old email still. But now I knew where she was. And more importantly, I knew what device she was using. Tess sent another file at 4:17 p.m., a PDF dump of hidden folders. Inside were chat logs between Amber and Dana dated as far back as 10 months. I skimmed through them. Cold, deliberate conversations often bordering on smug. Dana, does he suspect anything? Amber, not a clue. He still talks to me like I'm his home. Dana, God, that's so sad. But also effective. Use that. Another message made me stop cold. Amber, once this is done, I want to live like none of this ever existed. He'll be fine. He has his books. His routines. He doesn't need me. Dana, you're doing what's best. You're evolving. He's not. I wanted to scream. Not because of the betrayal, that pain had already taken root, but because of the certainty in her words. Like she had outgrown me, like I was a phase. A version of herself she'd finally shed. I forwarded everything to a secure drive and changed all my passwords. That night, Amber came home later than usual. She claimed she got stuck at an impromptu team dinner. Her phone buzzed twice in her bag, once while she hugged me from behind in the kitchen. I didn't ask who it was. I already knew. She cooked stir-fry and poured wine. Acted normal. Asked about my week. She even suggested a movie. The Lives of Others. The irony would have been poetic if it weren't so grotesque. I watched her during the movie. She laughed at the right parts. Nudged me when a character reminded her of one of my colleagues. But her eyes never reached mine. And now I knew why. She wasn't present. She was managing an image. And I wasn't a partner anymore. I was a prop. The next morning, Tess sent me the final file. A backup from Amber's Notes app. Password protected. Tess cracked it in under an hour. The top entry? Exit timeline. Below it, a full breakdown. Phase 1, emotional distancing. Complete. Phase 2, narrative construction. Complete. Phase 3, financial repositioning. Complete. Phase 4, legal consultation. In progress. Phase 5, controlled disengagement. TBD based on Jason's reactions. There it was. Plain as daylight. Clinical. Clean. Strategic. It wasn't heartbreak that hit me then, it was shame. Shame for not seeing it sooner. Shame for missing the rehearsal of her exit even as I sat in the front row holding the programs. I closed the file and stared at the screen. My wife didn't fall out of love with me. She decommissioned me. Brick by brick. One calculated conversation at a time. And the worst part? She thought I wouldn't notice. She'd counted on me staying polite, principled, and passive. She'd forgotten one thing. I don't fight with rage. I fight with facts.